Grant Harlow didn't even wait for Ariana to reach the doorway before sneering, loud enough for half the boarding line to hear. "Oh, great! Another one of those passengers. First class is up here, ma'am. Economy is 20 rows back if you're lost." He didn't smile. He didn't gesture politely. He pointed like giving directions to a nuisance. Then, with a dramatic sigh, he added, "People really will try anything to sneak their way into the premium cabin these days." The couple behind Ariana exchanged looks. The businessman in 2C smirked behind his newspaper. Someone whispered, "She probably used a last-minute discount." Ariana Holt, simple navy blazer, no jewelry except a thin gold band, worn leather notebook tucked under one arm, paused. Not confused, not intimidated, just watching him. "Sir," she said quietly, "my boarding pass." Grant snatched it from her fingers before she could finish. He didn't read it. He scanned it with an exaggerated performance of skepticism, the way someone checks a fake ID from a high schooler. Then the disdain sharpened. "Seat 3A? Seriously?" He laughed, a hard, dismissive bark. "Who booked this for you? Some charity program?" Gasps. A few stunned looks. Ariana remained still, her breath steady, eyes calm. Grant wasn't finished. He flicked his hand at her modest carry-on. "And what is that? A thrift store laptop bag?" He stepped aside, gesturing toward the overhead bins with theatrical reluctance. "Please don't scratch the premium luggage." Ariana lifted her bag without a word. Grant stepped in front of her again. "Hold up. Let me check you in properly. We have standards in first class." His gaze dragged over her appearance. Simple hair, no designer labels, no diamond watch, and his voice tightened with ugly certainty. "Look, you just don't fit the profile of our elite passengers." A hush fell over the first-class cabin. Ariana could feel every eye on her, some apologetic, some curious, some amused. Grant straightened his tie, inflated by his own importance, and added one final dagger. "Next time, try dressing like someone who belongs here." A murmur rippled through the cabin. A woman in 1D mouthed, "Oh my God!" An influencer in 2A subtly angled her phone to record. Ariana inhaled slowly, the kind of breath that comes from years of being underestimated, the kind that hides entire empires. "May I take my seat now?" she asked softly. Grant rolled his eyes dramatically. "If you insist on embarrassing yourself, sure. Just don't expect the full service. We prioritize our real first-class passengers." He stepped aside with a stiff, sarcastic bow. Ariana walked down the aisle, spine straight, steps controlled. She sat gently into 3A, set her notebook on her lap, and gazed out the window at the glowing runway. Her silence wasn't weakness. It was calculation, patience, the quiet power of someone who could take down an entire institution without raising her voice. Grant stalked past her again, muttering to a colleague just loud enough. "Every flight, every time. Someone tries to pull this stunt. Why can't people just stay where they belong?" His colleague winced but said nothing. Ariana opened her notebook, flipped to a blank page and wrote a single line. "Flight 782, observe crew culture." Grant spotted the notebook. "Oh, you're one of those note-taking complainers?" he snapped. He leaned closer, voice dripping poison. "Write whatever you want. Management won't read it." Ariana closed the notebook gently. Grant smirked, satisfied he'd established dominance. He turned to charm the businessman in 2C. A complete transformation, warm smile, perfect posture. "Welcome aboard, sir," he beamed. "Always good to have our true premium travelers." Ariana watched the performance unfold like a scene she'd seen too many times, the ugly truth she had been trying to eradicate from the airline she built. But tonight, she wasn't here as CEO. Not yet. Tonight, she wore the ordinary mask, a test, a mirror, a measure of what her airline had become when they thought she wasn't watching. Outside the window, the aircraft door closed. Flight attendants began their cross-check. The engines roared to life. Ariana rested her fingertips on her notebook. Grant's earlier words echoed, Try dressing like someone who belongs here. She exhaled, slow, controlled. Soon enough, he would learn exactly who belonged here and who didn't. Grant Harlow strutted down the aisle like he owned the sky. As boarding finished, he scanned the cabin with the smug pride of a man auditioning for a role he thought he already deserved. He paused at Ariana's seat again, deliberately, as if her mere presence offended the geometry of first class. "Ma'am, I need you to keep your belongings contained. We have a visual standard up here." Ariana looked at her carry-on, neatly tucked under the seat, completely within regulations. "It is contained," she replied calmly. Grant gave a humorless chuckle. "Well, contain it more. Don't make the front cabin look cluttered." His eyes narrowed at her simple leather notebook. "And maybe keep that thing hidden. Our first-class section isn't a public library." 2 rows behind her, the hedge fund executive chuckled. "Some people don't travel often, you know," he said loudly to no one and everyone. Grant flashed him a grin. "That's what I keep saying, sir. First class is aspirational for a reason." He pivoted away from Ariana just as sharply, as if refusing to acknowledge her further. Ariana stayed silent. Mid-boarding, a sharply dressed woman, diamond earrings, cashmere coat, stepped into the cabin. Grant's posture transformed instantly. He lit up like a chandelier. "Welcome aboard, Ms. Delacroix. So honored to have you." "Champagne?" His voice dropped to velvet. He guided her gently to her seat in 3C, directly across from Ariana. As he helped her remove her coat, he leaned close and whispered, not quietly enough, "Ignore her. She must have booked on points." The woman glanced at Ariana, polite smile but distant. "This flight gets all kinds these days," she whispered back. Phones lifted discreetly, eyes lingered. The tension in the cabin thickened like fog. As soon as they reached cruising altitude, Grant began the first drink service. Champagne for the influencer, champagne for the businessman, champagne for the polished, wealthy passengers. Ariana watched the glass hit each table, a ritual of exclusivity, a performance of privilege. Then Grant reached her row. He placed his body between her and the beverage cart, subtly blocking her. "Water," he barked. He didn't offer options. He didn't ask preferences. He simply set down a plastic cup of room temperature water. "Other drinks are reserved for our premium customers." Ariana looked at the water without touching it. "Is this intentional?" she asked softly. Grant sighed loudly. "Look, ma'am, I can't pretend you belong here just because you want to. Please don't make this harder." His colleague, a junior attendant named Rena, froze mid-pour at the next row. She looked between Ariana and Grant with discomfort. Something wasn't right. She had been warned about Grant's profiling tendencies, but seeing it unfold so openly made her stomach twist. Rena stepped closer. "Ma'am," she said quietly to Ariana, "I can bring you—" Grant snapped. "Rena, no!" His glare sliced. "Serve according to priority." Rena swallowed, stepped back. Ariana's expression didn't shift. Not anger, not shame, just calm, unnervingly calm. Later, an elderly white gentleman struggled to place his heavy briefcase in the overhead bin. Ariana stood gently. "Let me help you," she offered. She lifted the case with ease and tucked it into the bin. The man smiled warmly. "Thank you, very kind." Grant appeared out of nowhere, jaw tight. "Ma'am, don't touch other passengers' belongings. Security protocols." Ariana turned toward him. "I was only helping," Grant scoffed. "Well, that's not your role on this flight." He stepped closer, voice dripping with insinuation. "Unless you usually assist people on airplanes?" The implication was obvious and cruel. Ariana didn't flinch, but several passengers shifted uncomfortably, not enough to intervene, but enough to recognize the wrongness. Grant nodded to himself, satisfied. "Please sit, and stay seated until someone asks you for help." As he walked back toward the galley, Grant muttered to a colleague, intentionally audible. "First class really needs stricter screening. Appearance should matter. It tells you everything. No one missed the meaning. Not Rena. Not the influencer recording from behind her menu. Not the businessman pretending to type while listening in. And not Ariana, whose fingers rested gently on her notebook. The quiet gesture of a woman cataloging every moment. While the cabin lights dimmed for dinner, Grant passed Ariana one more time. He paused, looked her over with open disdain, and delivered the line that would set the tone for the entire flight. If you wanted to experience first class, ma'am, maybe try a tour at the airport museum. The real thing isn't for everyone. He smirked and walked away. Ariana closed her eyes, inhaling the soft hum of the engines. She whispered, barely audible, "Observe crew culture. Complete." And then she opened her notebook again. The storm had not begun, but its shadow stretched long across the aisle. The cabin lights brightened slightly, the signal that dinner service was about to begin. In first class, this moment was usually serene. Linen cloths, warm bread, silverware placed with ceremony. Tonight, it was a stage. Grant Harlow made sure of that. He strutted out of the galley holding a tray covered with polished domes. The handcrafted meals prepared by the Michelin-partnered chef ApexAir proudly showcased in its ads. But he angled the tray in a way that made his intention clear. He would skip Ariana first. He served the businessman in 2C with theatrical flourish. "Your Wagyu entree, sir. Only the finest for our loyal travelers." He served the influencer in 2A with champagne sparkle. "And for you, our signature dish. Perfect for your content." He served Ms. Delacroix in 3C with a gentle bow. "We always love having you." Then he stopped in front of Ariana, paused, tilted his head with a smirk, like he was looking at a misplaced object. "No special meal for 3A." Ariana looked up, calm as still water. "According to my reservation, I pre-ordered—" Grant raised a hand sharply, cutting her off. "I know what you ordered. That's why I said there's no special meal." He leaned closer, voice dripping with venom disguised as customer service. "We reserve our premium entrees for passengers who match the first-class profile." A murmur swept across the cabin. The influencer's camera zoomed in. Rena, the junior attendant, froze mid-step. Ariana's voice stayed soft. "My profile?" Grant's smile widened, cruel, performative. "Look, ma'am, some seats get upgraded last minute. Some people get lucky, but that doesn't mean we hand out the premium items to just anyone." Several passengers whispered. A man 2 rows down chuckled under his breath. Ariana simply said, "I paid for this seat." Grant rolled his eyes dramatically, making sure everyone saw. "Sure you did." He tapped the tablet with an exaggerated flourish. "Well, I guess the system must have glitched. Happens when seats get reassigned." Reassigned, a familiar coded word. Everyone heard what he meant. Grant straightened, speaking louder, projecting his words toward the entire cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, apologies. We have a reservation irregularity in seat 3A. The premium meal cannot be served here." Phones lifted, passengers turned. He wasn't denying her meal privately, he was making it a spectacle. Ariana held her breath steady, her face unreadable. Grant wasn't finished humiliating her, not even close. He returned to the galley, and when he came back, he held something in his hand, not the elegant plated entree served to every other first-class passenger, but a plastic-wrapped economy snack box, crinkly, cheap, the kind given on short domestic flights. He let it drop onto Ariana's table with a dull thud. A few people gasped, someone whispered, "That's messed up." Another whispered, "She should be grateful he gave her anything." Grant folded his arms. "There you go. That's more appropriate." Ariana looked at the box. Crackers, a bruised apple slice, a microwaved pasta cup. The exact opposite of the refined dish she had ordered weeks earlier. A dish created in partnership with the Black-owned restaurant initiative she personally funded. Grant smirked. "Don't worry, economy meals are still edible." His colleague tried to intervene. "Grant?" But he shut her down with a raised palm. Policy is policy, and I decide the standards up here. Ariana exhaled slowly. The humiliation was complete. Public, intentional, dripping with coded contempt. The cabin divided itself. Group 1. The silent witnesses, people who knew it was wrong. Eyes lowered, shame in their silence. Group 2. The smug observers, passengers who believed they deserved more than her, nodding at Grant's every insult. Group 3. The opportunists, influencers recording, hoping for viral drama. And then there was Rena. Her hands shook as she poured water in the next row. She looked at Ariana, looked at Grant, and her eyes filled with a tension she couldn't hide. Something in her whispered, "This is going too far." Grant returned with a trash bag, stopping beside Ariana as if she were a messy child. "If the meal is too complicated for you to open, I can assist." Ariana kept her eyes on the window. He leaned lower. "Honestly, seat 3A should have gone to someone else, someone who appreciates what first class means, someone who looks the part, someone appropriate, someone belonging." His words said it without saying it. Ariana finally spoke. Her voice was soft, dangerously soft. "Do you treat all your passengers this way, Mr. Harlow?" Grant scoffed. "No, just the ones trying to play pretend." He stepped back, addressing the entire cabin again. "Ladies and gentlemen, rest assured, we maintain high standards. Premium passengers will always get premium service." He made sure his gaze landed back on Ariana for the last line. "And everyone else gets what matches their ticket." A deliberate lie, a knife wrapped in policy. The humiliation seeped through the cabin like turbulence in the soul of the flight. The engine hum filled the space Grant left behind. Ariana looked down at the sad little snack box. She lifted it gently, not angrily, placed it beside her notebook, and opened to a blank page. She wrote, "Document, Flight 7A2, discrimination escalation, complete." Her handwriting was calm, measured, absolute. Rena stepped closer, voice barely audible. "Ma'am, I'm so sorry. This isn't right." Ariana offered her a soft, almost motherly look. "Thank you." Nothing more. Rena swallowed hard and walked away, guilt weighing down her steps. Across the cabin, Grant laughed with a passenger who congratulated him. "Some people need to be reminded of their place, huh?" Grant answered, "Exactly. First class is not a charity." Ariana tapped her pen once, then twice. Her expression didn't change. Her voice didn't rise. Her posture didn't shift. But something in the air around her did. It was invisible, quiet, lethal. The kind of quiet before a system collapses. The kind of silence that comes from a woman who holds more power than the cabin could ever imagine. Ariana closed her notebook. Grant turned away smugly. He had no idea the flight and his career had just changed forever. The cabin dimmed into its nighttime glow, soft amber lights along the ceiling, a hush settling over first class like a velvet curtain. Most passengers leaned back, satiated with their elegant meals. Trays were cleared, wine glasses refilled, and the cabin took on that tranquil hum that comes only at 35,000 feet. But around 3A, the air felt different, thicker, electric, like the quiet before a storm that hadn't announced itself yet. Ariana Holt sat perfectly still, hands resting lightly over her notebook. The economy snack box sat untouched beside it, a symbol, a wound, an entry in the silent ledger she was building with every breath. Grant strolled past her row again, pretending not to look at her. But he looked. He always looked. He needed to know that she still sat small, still sat silent, still sat in the place where he had shoved her. Ariana turned a page in her notebook with deliberate calm. Grant scoffed under his breath. "Taking notes won't make first class fit you any better." He said it like a reflex, cruelty, casual as breathing. This time, Ariana didn't respond, but she did look at him, directly. Her eyes held no anger, no fear, just clarity. And something under that clarity, something old, patient, and powerful. Grant blinked and looked away first. A few rows behind, Rena paused her steps, noticing the exchange. Again, over and over. Her hands tightened around her service cloth. She whispered to a colleague, "He's going too far." The colleague whispered back, "He always goes too far." "But this," Rena said softly, glancing toward Ariana, "this feels wrong." Her colleague gave a helpless shrug. "He's the purser. On his flights, he controls everything." Rena looked at Ariana again, not with pity, but with curiosity. "Who is she?" she murmured. Her colleague shook her head. "No idea. Booked last-minute upgrade, maybe." Yet the way Ariana sat, posture dignified, gaze steady, silence heavy, made Rena feel something she couldn't explain. As if the woman in 3A wasn't someone who'd stumbled into first class. As if the woman in 3A belonged here more than any of them. On the other side of the cabin, the influencer in 2A angled her camera discreetly. The businessman in 2C typed messages on his phone, but his eyes flickered toward Ariana whenever he thought no one noticed. Ms. Delacroix, sipping her champagne, leaned slightly toward 3C and whispered, "Poor thing. But appearances matter in premium travel. These people need to understand the rules." Ariana heard it. Her breath didn't change, but her fingers subtly tightened around her pen. A quiet ledger entry, a quiet memory. She wasn't noting insults. She was noting patterns. Suddenly, a jolt. The cabin shook lightly, then steadied. A second jolt hit harder. Passengers glanced around uneasily. Ariana simply adjusted her seatbelt with one fluid motion. Grant emerged from the galley, plastering on a fake, soothing smile. "Ladies and gentlemen, light turbulence. Nothing unusual." But as he moved past Ariana, he paused to sneer. "Don't panic. Just breathe. Ask for help only if you actually need it." A coded jab, a reminder of her place. Ariana reopened her notebook, flipped to a fresh page, and began writing. Grant watched the ink glide across the page. Something in him bristled. "Are you writing a complaint?" he demanded. Ariana didn't look up. "No." Grant leaned slightly over her shoulder, trying to read. She closed the notebook gently, blocking his view. He straightened abruptly, jaw tightening. "Passengers don't get to record their opinions like that," he snapped. "Everything goes through official channels." Ariana met his eyes again, calm and devastatingly unshakable. "I know," she said. There was nothing in the words. No threat, no emotion. Yet Grant flinched. The cabin speakers crackled softly. "Chief Purser Harlow, cockpit requests your presence for a systems communication issue." Grant's expression stiffened, briefly, before he plastered on confidence. "Duty calls," he said smugly to Ms. Delacroix. "Important people need important staff." He glanced once more at Ariana, eyebrows raised as if to say, "See, I'm valued. You're not." Then he walked briskly to the cockpit. The door closed behind him. Minutes passed. The cabin stayed quiet except for engine hums and hushed conversations. A small cart rattled gently as Rena approached Ariana's row. "Ma'am, may I refill your water?" she whispered. Ariana looked up, offering a soft, tired smile that hit Rena in the chest. "Thank you," Ariana said. Rena leaned closer, voice trembling. "Are you okay?" Ariana's eyes held hers, deep, calm, understanding. "I'm patient," Ariana said gently. "And patient people never lose." Rena swallowed hard. She didn't know why, but those words made her heart race. "Grant's wrong," she blurted. You're not what he thinks." Ariana's voice was soft as dusk. "I know." Rena inhaled sharply, almost shivering at the certainty in those two words. Who was this woman? The cockpit door opened. Grant returned, but his swagger had faltered. Slightly, barely noticeable, but enough. His cheeks were flushed. His eyes darted around the cabin. His steps were a little too quick, his posture a little too stiff. He passed Ariana without speaking, which, for him, was unusual. Ariana noticed every detail, every shift. She opened her notebook again. Grant hesitated mid-step, as if the quiet scratch of pen on paper unnerved him more than any shout could. "What are you writing?" he snapped. Ariana lifted her gaze, slow and steady. "A record." "Of what?" She closed the notebook. "We'll see." Grant frowned deeply. For the first time, doubt flickered behind his eyes. He walked away, but he kept looking back over his shoulder, unable to shake the sense that something had shifted beneath him, like turbulence too subtle for instruments, but unmistakable to instinct. As Grant fussed around the galley, pretending to reorganize silverware, Ariana looked ahead, toward the closed cockpit door. Her eyes softened, almost knowingly. Passengers chatted quietly. The plane hummed. Yet in that moment, something invisible passed through the cabin, a whisper of reversal, a shift in gravity. Rena saw Ariana's expression, serene, composed, unreadable, and felt goosebumps rise along her arms. Whatever the captain had said to Grant, whatever whisper of protocol had been triggered, whatever line between humiliation and justice had been crossed, Ariana already knew the truth. The power on this flight had just changed hands, even if Grant didn't know it yet. Ariana closed her eyes briefly, breathed in deeply, then exhaled with the quiet certainty of a woman who could tear down kingdoms without lifting her voice. The ledger was complete, the humiliation logged, the silence sharpened into purpose. And when she opened her eyes again, the storm had already begun, quietly, invisibly, and entirely under her control. The cabin lights flickered again as turbulence rumbled beneath the plane, more insistent this time. Passengers instinctively tightened their seatbelts. A baby cried faintly from the back. The engines hummed deeper, vibrating through the aluminum bones of the aircraft. Then the cockpit door opened. Captain Reeves stepped out, tall, steady, an expression carved from years of crisis control. But tonight, something sat behind his eyes, urgency mixed with confusion. He scanned first class. His gaze drifted past the businessman, past Ms. Delacroix, past the influencer still pretending to film her food. Then his eyes found Ariana, and he froze. Not in shock, not in disbelief, in recognition. He exhaled, like a man finding the lighthouse in a storm. Grant noticed and rushed over. "Captain, sir, everything is fine in first class. All premium passengers are comfortable. I'm handling the irregularities." The captain didn't even look at him. "Ms. Holt," he said, voice steady, respectful, reverent. "We need your authorization code." A collective gasp rippled through the rows. Ariana lifted her head gently like a queen acknowledging a subject. "Of course," she said calmly. Grant blinked. "Ms. Holt?" Ariana unbuckled her seatbelt with a single smooth motion. Grant sputtered. "Captain, she's not... She doesn't..." But Captain Reeves cut him off sharply. "Harlow, stand down." Grant's mouth hung open. Passengers leaned forward, phones tilted. A quiet shock pulsed through the cabin. Ariana reached into her blazer and pulled out her phone. Not a flustered scramble, a quiet, knowing movement, like she had done this before. Captain Reeves waited, hands clasped behind his back, the posture of a man standing before his employer. Ariana tapped through a security app with fluid certainty. Biometric scan, fingerprint, retinal match. Owner verification portal. The screen glowed with a deep sapphire blue. A symbol appeared, a private sigil used only within the highest tier of ApexAir's executive ecosystem. The captain nodded. "That's the one." Grant's curiosity twisted into dread. What is that?" he demanded, trying to hide the tremble in his voice. Ariana didn't answer him. She spoke only to the captain. "Please read the authorization request." He handed her a printed slip, a message relayed from ground operations. Majority owner override needed ApexAir Group. Flight 782 systems irregularity. Cross-verification of primary shareholder identity required. Ariana scanned it, unsurprised. She entered a long code, each number typed with unwavering precision. Passengers craned their necks. The businessman's jaw dropped. The influencer gasped, whispering into her phone, "Oh my God, she's someone important." When Ariana pressed the final digit, the device chimed a low, secure tone. The captain's tablet lit up instantly. Override received majority shareholder Ariana Holt. A burst of oxygen seemed to disappear from the cabin. Rena covered her mouth. Ms. Delacroix sat upright, wine glass trembling. Even the businessman stopped typing mid-sentence, fingers frozen over his screen. Grant staggered backward a step. No, that's not possible. He jabbed a shaking finger at Ariana. That woman is not the owner of ApexAir. She doesn't look. He caught himself. Too late. Ariana's eyes met his. Calm, deep, devastating. I don't look like what, Mr. Harlow? His tongue tripped. His face turned a shade paler. He swallowed hard. I just meant the owner would never fly alone, in regular clothes, without security. Ariana stood from her seat. For the first time the entire flight, her presence expanded. Not loud, not aggressive, simply undeniable. Like gravity, like truth. I built this airline to serve everyone, she said softly. I don't need to perform wealth to belong in the seat I paid for. Her voice was silk wrapped around steel. Captain Reeves bowed his head slightly. Ms. Holt, we're ready for your full clearance whenever you are. Ariana nodded and handed him the device. He accepted it with the reverence of a soldier taking orders from his commander. Grant stared at her notebook, now resting on the seat. A notebook he had mocked, a notebook he had dismissed, a notebook containing the observations of the majority owner. Oh God, he whispered. Oh no. No. Passengers exchanged looks of disbelief. The influencer whispered, This is going viral in 5 minutes. The businessman muttered, She owns the airline, and we all just watched him humiliate her. Rina stepped forward, tears brimming in her eyes. Ms. Holt, I'm so sorry. I didn't know, Ariana placed a gentle hand on her arm. You showed kindness, she said warmly. That's all that matters. Grant's knees looked ready to buckle. But you should have said who you were, he rasped. Ariana turned to him slowly. My dignity, she said, is not something I should have to prove. His breath hitched. And tonight, she added, you proved exactly why I flew incognito. Grant's face collapsed. Ariana looked around the cabin, not with triumph, but with truth. For the first time since boarding, the entire first-class cabin saw her for who she was, a leader, a builder, a woman who held the power of an empire in the calm of her hands. She sat back down gently, never breaking eye contact with the purser whose career had just shattered in midair. And in the quiet that followed, only one thought echoed through the cabin. The owner is on board, and she has witnessed everything. The moment Ariana Holt's override code registered, the aircraft changed. Not in turbulence, not in sound, in gravity. A new center of power settled into place. Silent, immovable, absolute. Captain Reeves nodded respectfully, then returned to the cockpit with Ariana's authorization. When the door closed behind him, the cabin felt different. Passengers sat straighter. Conversations fell into hushes. Even the air felt charged. Grant Harlow stood frozen beside the galley, complexion draining down his neck like spilled ink. Rena watched him, not with cruelty, but with a dawning understanding. He was no longer in control. She was. Ariana lifted her notebook from her lap and flipped it open. The pen in her hand moved with quiet certainty as she wrote a new heading. Phase 2, immediate action upon landing. As she began to write, Grant jolted forward, voice cracking. I didn't know. Ms. Holt, please, you have to understand. I didn't mean, I thought. Ariana looked up slowly. Her gaze wasn't angry. It was worse. It was clear. Mr. Harlow, she said quietly, I suggest you return to your station. Grant's breath hitched, panic trembling in his throat. But, you can't just... Ariana closed the notebook. The soft click of its cover felt like a gavel. I can, she replied. He swallowed, Adam's apple bobbing. The cabin listened. The hum of the engines felt like a heartbeat. Every passenger, every attendant, every shadow in the cabin seemed to lean in. Rena stepped forward. Ms. Holt, she said softly, would you like some tea? Ariana smiled, a gentle, grateful curve of her lips that softened Rena instantly. Chamomile, please? Rena hurried away. Grant stared after her, shaking with disbelief that his own junior staff now gravitated toward Ariana like she was gravity itself. 5 minutes later, the interphone at the galley rang. Grant hesitated, then picked it up with a trembling hand. Purser Harlow speaking. Captain Reeves's voice came through, steady but firm. Harlow, prepare for an emergency reception upon landing. Ms. Holt's protocols are being initiated. Grant's jaw dropped. Emergency? Sir, what is that? Follow procedure, Reeves said sharply. Ms. Holt has authorized Red Protocol 1. The line clicked dead. Grant felt the cabin spin. Red Protocol 1 wasn't a passenger issue. It wasn't a meal service problem. It wasn't even a crew misconduct report. It was the highest level immediate action directive in ApexAir's rulebook. System-wide ethical breach investigation. Crew relief upon landing, mandatory compliance review, ground-level leadership activation. Only 2 people in the entire company had the authority to initiate it, the CEO and the majority owner. Grant stumbled backward into the bulkhead. Oh God, he whispered to himself. What have I done? Ms. Delacroix stared across the aisle, cheeks red. I had no idea, she murmured. The businessman exhaled through his teeth. That's the owner. We just watched her get humiliated in her own first class. The influencer whispered into her phone. This is history. I'm witnessing history. A middle-aged couple exchanged guilty looks. A younger man muttered, should have said something. Silence thickened. Not one person could deny what they had seen. Not one person could pretend they weren't complicit. Ariana sat unmoved, writing in her notebook, with a calm that felt almost supernatural. When turbulence broke again, the cockpit door opened and Captain Reeves stepped out. This time, there was no mistaking the purpose in his stride. He approached Ariana directly. Ms. Holt, ground operations has been notified. Senior compliance, HR, and the president will be waiting at the gate. Ariana nodded gently. Thank you, Captain. If there's anything else you require. There will be, she said simply. I'll address it after landing. Reeves bowed his head slightly and returned to the cockpit. Grant watched all of this happen with a look of pure horror. Unable to restrain himself any longer, he approached Ariana's row. Ms. Holt, he began weakly. I was only doing my job. You have to understand, I treat all passengers according to... I didn't know... You never announced. Ariana raised a single hand. He stopped mid-sentence. Your job, she said steadily, is to provide every passenger with the respect and dignity they are entitled to, regardless of appearance, status, or assumptions. Grant swallowed hard. She continued, voice calm and surgical. But what you displayed tonight was not service. It was prejudice. It was humiliation. And it was systemic. Grant paled at the word. Systemic. It meant she saw everything, not just one incident, a culture, a rot, his leadership, and his downfall. He opened his mouth, but Ariana continued. You had the authority to set the tone of this cabin, and instead, you weaponized it. She closed the notebook. And you lied about me. You lied about policy, and you lied about what this airline stands for. Grant swayed as if struck. Rena returned quietly with Ariana's chamomile tea, hands steady now. She placed it gently on Ariana's tray. Ariana touched her hand in genuine gratitude. Thank you, Rena. Rena blushed, stepping back. Grant looked between them, confused, terrified, and slowly understanding that kindness, not power, had always been the true measure Ariana was using. The "prepare for landing" chime sounded. Passengers straightened, seats upright, belts clicked. But all eyes were on Ariana Holt, the woman who had revealed herself without raising her voice. The aircraft glided through the clouds, descending toward the runway lights below. As the wheels touched down, soft and sure, Grant realized what awaited him. The end of his authority, the end of his career, the beginning of accountability. Ariana closed her notebook. Then she whispered, not to him, not to anyone, just to the air. Justice doesn't roar, it arrives. Grant's breath faltered, and the plane rolled toward a fate that no one on board would ever forget. The aircraft rolled toward Gate 47B under the soft glow of midnight runway lights, each blue marker, reflecting across the aluminum frame like a heartbeat returning to normal after a long strain. Inside the cabin, no one spoke. No one even shifted in their seat. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was charged, reverent, anticipating something monumental. Ariana Holt sat with her notebook closed on her lap, hands folded gently over it. She did not look triumphant. She looked steady, grounded, almost serene. Grant Harlow, meanwhile, sat stiff in the jump seat, hands trembling against his knees. His eyes were glassy, his pulse unsteady. Rena stood beside him, breath shallow, unsure whether to feel fear, relief, sadness, or admiration. Because after tonight, she understood something clearly. There were two kinds of leadership. Grant's kind, loud, performative, insecure, and Ms. Holt's kind, quiet, transformative, unstoppable. The engines powered down as the aircraft reached the gate. A soft click echoed when the seatbelt sign went off. Passengers exhaled collectively, though none moved. They looked toward Ariana the way people look at a general after a battle, grateful to have witnessed strength, yet humbled by the weight of it. The jet bridge extended with a mechanical whir. A moment later, a chime. Then the door opened, and the world outside was not normal. A line of high-level ApexAir executives waited at the jet bridge. President Alan Pike, Chief Operating Officer Mara Ellison, Chief Compliance Officer Daniel Wu, Head of HR Sylvia Trent, 3 security managers, 2 corporate attorneys, and a small team from ApexAir Ethics and Conduct Division, all standing in absolute silence. Passengers gasped. Rena's hand went to her mouth. Grant's knees nearly buckled. The president stepped forward, face tight with concern. "Ms. Holt," he said, "welcome home." Ariana rose from her seat with effortless grace. The senior executives all straightened, almost unconsciously, as though gravity itself shifted around her. "Good evening, Alan," Ariana replied calmly. Grant stared at the scene, barely comprehending. They knew her. They respected her. They deferred to her. The president glanced past her toward the first-class cabin. "Are you well?" he asked quietly. Ariana nodded once. "Yes." "Did the crew treat you properly?" he asked carefully. The silence that followed was cavern deep. Ariana didn't answer the question. Instead, she said, "We will review together." Every executive stiffened in understanding. A coded message, a leader signal, Red Protocol 1 would proceed. "Cabin crew," the president announced, voice formal and cold. "Please remain on board for immediate debrief and investigation." Grant's breath hitched. What does that mean?" he whispered. Rena felt him wobble beside her. A corporate compliance officer explained, "You're being placed on temporary operational suspension pending a full ethical and procedural review." Grant stuttered, "Suspension? But another officer interrupted. "You will surrender your badge, access card, and crew tablet before leaving this aircraft." Grant's mouth opened like a broken hinge. My badge? You're terminating me?" Ariana stepped forward, her expression unreadable. "Mr. Harlow," she said softly, "this is not termination." Hope flickered in his eyes. Then she finished. This is the beginning of accountability. His hope died instantly. The businessman in 2C stood abruptly. I'd like to file a statement, he said. I saw everything. Ms. Delacroix rose next. I misjudged her, she confessed quietly. I contributed to the atmosphere. I want to help the investigation. Even the influencer in 2A stood, shaking slightly as she lifted her phone. I recorded parts of it. I didn't intervene. I should have. Her eyes darted to Ariana. I'd like to give the footage, if it helps. Ariana turned to them with soft, steady dignity. Thank you, she said. Your honesty matters. Passengers felt their throats tighten. No anger in her voice, no bitterness, just truth. The executives directed Grant and the rest of the crew toward the front galley, turning it into a makeshift investigation bay. Passengers respectfully stayed back, though many leaned just enough to hear faint voices. President Pike gestured for Ariana to stand in the aisle with him for privacy. Ms. Holt, he murmured, please tell me everything that happened. Ariana didn't recount events with venom or dramatics. She described them with precision, each humiliating moment like an item on a ledger. When she finished, the president's face was pale. This is catastrophic, he whispered. For our culture, for our brand, for our integrity. Ariana closed her notebook. Then let's rebuild, she said simply. Grant's voice rose from the galley, desperate, cracking. I swear I didn't know she was the owner. If I knew, I would have. Daniel Wu cut him off. So, you admit your behavior would have changed only because of her status? Grant froze. Silence. Deadly silence. That, Daniel said, is exactly the problem. Another officer spoke. We've compiled 5 years of passenger complaints attached to your badge ID. Many were dismissed as service preference issues. But combined with tonight? Rena closed her eyes, heart pounding. Grant slumped into the jump seat, burying his face in his hands. Please, he whispered. I can fix it. Give me one more chance. Ariana approached the galley quietly. Grant lifted his eyes, streaked with fear. Ms. Holt, he begged. I'm sorry. Truly. Please just don't end my career. Tell them I can stay. I didn't know who you were. Ariana didn't raise her voice, didn't glare, didn't crush him. She whispered the most devastating line of the night. You shouldn't need to know who someone is to treat them with dignity. Grant broke. Tears. Real, terrified tears. But Ariana didn't watch him cry. She turned to the executives. Begin the culture reset. Within minutes, orders were issued. The entire flight crew, relieved from duty, immediately Grant Harlow, barred from all ApexAir service roles pending formal termination. 3 attendants, placed on temporary suspension pending retraining review. Rena, retained flagged for accelerated leadership development. Grant didn't protest, he couldn't. The system changes. Ariana outlined new directives on the spot. New anti-discrimination training across all hubs, new passenger dignity protocol, anonymous cabin crew conduct, reporting tool, leadership diversity overhaul, direct owner review of all cultural complaints for 90 days, ApexAir Human First Initiative, immediate rollout. Executives scrambled to take notes. HR wrote frantically. Compliance officers nodded sharply. This was not revenge. This was reform. And every person in that jet bridge felt it. One by one, passengers stepped off the aircraft, but unlike any other flight, they stopped beside Ariana. The businessman. You handled everything with more dignity than any of us deserved. Ms. Delacroix, I learned something tonight. Thank you. The influencer. I'm deleting the footage from earlier. If I post anything, it'll be about accountability and respect. Ariana nodded to each of them, not smiling, not posturing, just present, just human. Rena approached timidly. twisting her hands. Miss Holt. Yes? I want you to know. You made me want to be better at this job. Ariana's expression softened. You were the only one who showed kindness when it mattered. Rena's eyes shimmered. I'm honored you noticed. Ariana placed a gentle hand on hers. I notice everything. Rena inhaled sharply, a sound halfway between relief and awe. You're going to be a leader here, Ariana said quietly. Rena's knees nearly buckled. Thank you, Ms. Holt. Truly. Ariana squeezed her hand once, then released it. When Ariana finally stepped off the aircraft, the entire executive team trailed behind her like gravity-bound moons orbiting a quiet sun. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. Justice had already landed, and the airline would never be the same. 3 months later, the world below shimmered beneath a warm sunrise as Flight 1123 taxied toward the same runway where Ariana Holt once descended into humiliation and rebuilt an airline from its bones. This time she boarded through a quiet side gate. No cameras, no onlookers, no jet bridge lined with executives. Just a simple, solitary woman in a charcoal gray travel coat carrying her worn leather notebook and a calm smile. ApexAir looked different now. The uniforms were redesigned, clean lines, deeper. Blues, pins that read human first. The energy in the cabin felt different too. Lighter, warm, but professional, centered on respect rather than performance. As Ariana stepped into the first-class cabin, a young attendant greeted her with genuine warmth. Good morning, ma'am. Welcome aboard. May I help with your bag? Her tone was kind, not performative, not calibrated by appearance, just human. Ariana smiled. No need. Thank you. The attendant nodded respectfully and continued assisting other passengers with equal care. Ariana watched the symmetry of service. No hierarchies, no selective charm, no coded bias. A small transformation, but a profound one. A few rows back, a black teenager wearing braids and a sky blue hoodie hesitated before taking her seat. She looked around, unsure if she belonged in such a luxurious space. Before she could retreat to coach, where her mother was seated, a flight attendant approached her gently. Seat 4A? Right this way, she said with a warm grin. Let's get you settled. You're exactly where you should be. The girl's shoulders dropped in relief. Her mother mouthed thank you from the aisle. Ariana's heart softened. This was why she rebuilt the airline. Not for power, not for image, but for people like that young girl. People who deserved dignity without needing to earn it. The new purser, a confident woman named Elise, approached Ariana with a professional smile. Welcome aboard, Miss Holt. Ariana blinked, surprised. You recognize me? Elise chuckled. Only from our leadership videos. But don't worry, I'll treat you just like everyone else. That's our standard now. Ariana's smile deepened. Good. That means I've done my job. Elise nodded with pride. If you need anything during the flight, just let me know. Quietly. We don't make announcements about VIPs anymore. Ariana felt warmth bloom in her chest. She opened her notebook, not to document failure this time, but to capture something else, something new. ApexAir culture reset. Visible impact achieved. As the plane continued boarding, the young girl in 4A peeked over her seat, shyly glancing at Ariana. Hi, the girl whispered. Hi, Ariana replied gently. Is it your first time in first class? The girl asked. Ariana smiled. No, but it is my first time feeling proud of what it represents. The girl nodded, not fully understanding, but sensing the truth behind the words. The aircraft door closed with a soft thud. Elise made a short welcome announcement. Simple, respectful, free of elitist flourishes. And to all our customers today, thank you for trusting us. We honor your presence on this flight. Ariana closed her eyes and let those words settle over her like sunlight. As the engines rumbled and the plane pushed back from the gate, Rena appeared, now wearing a purser's uniform, her posture upright, her confidence newfound, her eyes bright. She froze when she recognized Ariana. "Ms. Holt," she whispered. Ariana stood and opened her arms slightly. Rena stepped into a soft embrace, overwhelmed. "You made it," Ariana said warmly. I'm leading the team today," Rena said, her voice trembling with gratitude. "I studied every policy, every training, everything you asked for, and I will protect this culture with everything I have." Ariana held her shoulders gently. "I knew you would." Rena stepped back, breath shaking, eyes shimmering. "Thank you for seeing me." "I saw your heart," Ariana said softly. "That's what leadership is." Rena returned to work with renewed purpose. Ariana sat back down as the aircraft accelerated across the runway, smooth, strong, rising into the morning sky. She opened her notebook one last time and wrote, "Real luxury is dignity." As clouds embraced the aircraft, Ariana looked out the window, whispering into the morning light, "Dignity is the real first class." The words didn't echo. They didn't rise. They simply settled. Perfect, complete, true. And with that, the chapter closed. Quietly, gracefully, exactly as it should. This story is more than an airline incident. It's a reminder that dignity should never depend on appearance, wealth, race, or status. Ariana Holt didn't raise her voice, didn't seek revenge, and didn't need to prove her worth. She demonstrated a far deeper truth. Quiet power is often the strongest kind. Her response wasn't about punishing one man, it was about transforming a broken system. And she did it with humility, restraint, and a graceful certainty that demanded respect. Whether in planes, workplaces, schools, or everyday life, the true measure of power is how we treat people who can give us nothing in return. Every act of cruelty leaves a mark. Every act of kindness reshapes the world. What followed became one of the most powerful real-life parables of Black excellence, faith, and dignity, and overcoming adversity ever witnessed at altitude. Because sometimes the quietest woman in the room holds the loudest power, and sometimes the calmest response changes an entire system. Have you ever been underestimated, only to rise higher than anyone expected? Like, share and subscribe to Dignity Voices, cinematic storytelling that celebrates truth, humility, and power with purpose.